Okay, huge interest to get into YC. So I hope because of this session, at least by for this batch, we can expect around minimum 5 startups from Kerala to be the part of YC, hopefully. So I first of all I welcome Pranav Raj. It's this event is happened like okay in a startup group. I just put the link of the program and that time Pranav just mentioned like okay if someone want to apply for YC I can help. So I thought of having like extending the support to all startups and he was willing to do that. So thank you Pranav for helping our startups to apply for the program. And we have Arjun Paul from Zoco. So he's also uh, talking about how their experience, how they get into, so how the startups are need to be applied for. Yeah, and not joined, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Hi.
yeah, and
Welcome, Anand. So Anand, I think this is the third time Anand is being part of Kerala Startup Mission program. Welcome you. So coming back to Arjun, I think all these people will be there for like coming 2, 3, 4 days to help you out of filing application for the YC program. They all you can connect them through LinkedIn and you can seek their help to apply. So welcome Arjun from Zoco.
thank you.
Pranav from Chatwoot and Anand, another like very useful resource for those who are like those who have cross-border business. So he's also I think he's a serial entrepreneur. His second startups, I think if am I right, his second startup is a YC startup. So now he's helping all business to set up in US. Mainly, I think he's helping so many startups to get into YC also. So he'll be talking about application process plus legalities of setting up companies and everything. So today we'll be mostly covering about application process and that take you through like how the application should be, how you respond to each question, how the video should be, everything. So Anand is like overall moderating the session. So welcome Anand and over to you. So audience, welcome you all and please make use of this great opportunity to interact with all YC startup founders so who are going to help you in filing application for next batch of a funding cycle from Y Combinator. Thank you all. Over to you, Anand.
Thanks so much. So appreciate it. Okay, great. So yeah, I'm here in Bangalore, and I think the folks are here. Pranav, you're in US.
Yeah, I'm joining from San Francisco.
Wonderful. And Arjun, where are you?
I'm in Dubai actually.
Okay, great. So all over the world, yeah. So we're getting global coverage. And
Dubai is in Kerala.
yeah, yeah, this is one of great. And I feel very welcome here, even though I'm not from Kerala. So thank you for welcoming me, all the Keralites. So yeah, nice to be here with you all. I am a YC alum though.
And can you be a little bit louder?
Yeah, sure. I was saying I am a YC alum,
Okay.
previous startup, but so what I want to do is go through some of the thoughts with these two folks who are still running their YC companies and give inputs from my side as well. So we'll follow that format, and yeah, we'll take it forward. Please keep posting all your questions on the Q&A rather than in the comments. It'll help us to organize the questions nicely, and also raise your hands. We'll also invite you on stage and go from there. Okay, great. Let's dive in. So Pranav, we're going to start with you. So yeah, now there's, I believe, about 6 or 7 days to go until the YC Summit 2023 batch deadline. Now, very often folks, young, early stage, first time founders, early stage founders, young founders, many times people ask alums here, like, should I apply? So let's just even start with that, right?
Okay.
And just try to explain to us why you think should or should not apply, Pranav, from your perspective.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, irrespective of whether you think that you shouldn't apply, you should definitely apply. There are like two things which I can think of. One, the application process itself. If you look at, the type of questions and the type of answers they expect, it's it's very detailed. It asks for what you're building. It asks for how you're building it and why you're building it. So it's essentially a question of whether you really know your business, whether you really know what you're building. And if you do that exercise, I mean, irrespective of whether you're actually applying for YC or not, you would have much more clarity on whenever you speak about your business to a person, you would have much more clarity on what are the things that matters, like what are the metrics of your business, what are the who are the founders, how's the responsibility split across different founders, and what exactly is the core problem you are solving and how you're solving it. So I mean, the interview questions, like the application, the questions in the application actually ranges from all different sort of aspects of the business, and doing that exercise is definitely helpful. And the second part, which I think you should definitely apply, is because the odds of getting success. I mean, I think this Dalton has already has a video about it, how to become successful. So I would you create luck around it, you create your own luck. So one part of it is to be around people who are building bigger businesses. And if you are in YC, you will definitely see big companies. You will see people doing different sort of things. Yeah, I think building a crypto startup in way back in 2011, if you are in in any other places, you might not be able to do that. But Coinbase did that in early 2011 2012 times. And yeah, I mean, YC was the earliest people who took a bet on them. So having a very what do you say, an idea which everyone else thinks that is wrong, and it cannot be done. If you are trying to get around people who are actually who thinks about startups, and who actually thinks more about creating success, your odds of success would also be higher. And I think yeah, being in YC is definitely an easiest way to get near to people who are thinking about success. So yeah, I mean, I think these two things would really matter, and yeah, you should definitely apply.
Thanks. Yeah, no, great insights. Arjun, folks sometimes think, it's such a low probability of acceptance. It's a long form. We're not even sure what we're doing yet. These are some of the doubts that will come into folks' minds. What do you think, Arjun? Why should folks apply?
I mean, short answer, yes. There's no reason not to apply, right? It's a free application. It takes just half an hour to fill in. So there's really no reason not to apply, right? And I think the real question people are wondering is, am I mature enough as a startup to apply? Will I get in? So, I mean, applying and actually getting in is two different things. So don't worry about the results of the application. Just go through the process, right? And if you think about it, just to give you some numbers, about 20 to 30% of YC startups are at the idea stage, right? They don't have anything. They don't even have a single dollar. That might be surprising. And your actual idea with which you get in also doesn't matter, really doesn't matter, right? Because during the next 90 days, it may change. Case in point, Brex, which is a, I don't know, $30 billion or something large company now. The founders got in with the idea of VR glasses. Right. So during the first 90 days, they realized, oh, this is a really a shit idea that nothing is going to come out of it. And they pivoted to becoming Brex, which is a large company. Right. So the short answer is really there's no reason not to apply. The chances are you're not going to get in, right? Because it's one of the most competitive processes in the world. So don't be surprised if you don't get in. So yeah, get over it. and just apply. And just the application process itself will be useful for your startup, because it helps you think in a structured manner about your startup, how you're going to make money, what's the path to become a billion-dollar company, all that, right? So just doing the application is helpful for you as a startup. So again, just repeating, there's no reason not to apply, just apply.
Great. Yeah, no, thanks, Arjun. I reflect on that. And Pranav and Arjun said is, when we apply at almost nothing, it just really makes you focus, right? And the way those questions are structured, I don't think they've changed in like 15 years. It's still the same form, right?
Yeah.
It makes you really think. It makes you think, it makes you ask yourself these questions. They're like, actually, you know what? We should organize ourselves a bit better. We should focus on these things that actually matter, right? So that's what I found, was the form was really nice, well structured. You don't have to make a long form, but certainly it made me think a lot more about the business. The second thing I think that we reflected on was that, as you said, what is it? What 2% of applications ultimately get accepted, right? And so, to increase your chances, you kind of get into this rhythm of almost applying if you do it again and again. And I have a friend over in Chennai who applied and got in on the 11th attempt. So it just shows that
we got in on the 4th time.
Well, there you go, right? So Pranav, you?
Mine was third.
And you're actually one of the unique folks here. You're from an earlier avatar. I think you also sorry, no, your co-founder got in twice, right?
Yeah. So I think like for them, they got it first time. It was Market Fox. They applied first, and like in 2017, and they got in. But yeah, afterwards, like I applied with a different idea. First time it didn't work out. Then I applied with Chatwoot once. Then I applied with Chatwoot again after 6 months, and that's where I got an interview.
Yeah, no, nice. And do you feel that rhythm of applications is noticed by the YC partners? Do they see?
Yeah, I believe so, because like most of the questions were similar. Only things that was changed from our application was like what are the metrics, like what was the I think like there is a question which asks you about have you applied to YC before and what has changed from the last application. So for us, like the numbers were very good. Like in 6 months, we went from like some GitHub stars to a very good number. So yeah.
Interesting. No, and it's interesting because they actually have a team of 6-7 engineers. I think they're building software in-house full time. They have sophisticated technology. It's fantastic. It's world-class technology, and they do track your applications time and time again. And if you use the same YC Hacker News login, and it's not that you should actually avoid using the same login. I actually believe that it's best to use the same login for each attempt, because it shows your grit, your determination, and it's fine that you pivoted. It's fine that you changed your co-founder 3-4 times. It's fine that you have a new company name, right, Arjun?
Yeah, exactly that, right? So see, there's nothing you can do wrong that YC hasn't seen before, right? So they've seen it all. So don't worry about one trying to impress them or trying to hide something that you may have messed up. Just put it all out in the open. That's what we did. We applied 4 times. That's like over 2 years, every 6 months. We got an interview. Second time we got an interview, messed it up big time. And then 4th time we got an interview again. But we just kept the same application, right? So one thing is, it's one thing, one of the biggest, indicators of startup success is the grit of the founders, right? Do they stay at that problem? Or do they not give up easily? So what better way to show it than say, yeah, I've been at this stupid problem for 2 years. I haven't given up. And finally, I've made like $6,000 in revenue. I'm still working on it, right? So that question is settled. Right? It's great data for you to show that you won't give up that easily, right? So they like that. And if you can show that, it's great. So so then just keep applying, stay on it, use the same application, show progress, and it makes your application stronger. Imagine there'll be 18,000 other applications, and your application will be the one that can show, oh, you 2 years ago you were at this point, you were not making any money, but then a year later you figured out a lot of learnings and then you made some money, then your application kind of goes to the top 5%, right? Automatically. So it can only advantage you if you kind of use the same application and apply again.
For sure. And Pranav, having seen this a few times in your startup career as well, co-founder changes, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that in application forms? Is it an issue? Like what? Because I know a lot of early stage founders are going through iterations of team, who's CEO, who's CTO, we'll be working together, we're not working together, am I resigning my job? Like I need a salary, I can't quite leave until this company's funded or has some ramen profitability. They're all kind of going through these iterations, and at the same time there's deadlines coming and they're thinking, yikes, should we apply together? So this kind of musical chairs is going on, and I tell you, it's much more prevalent than anyone realizes. So what should folks be thinking about there?
Yeah, I think I'll give my my first application. I think like I applied with 5 founders, and we didn't even know like who was the CEO, who was like doing the tech, who was it's basically a shit show. But yeah, one of the things that came out after applying was there needs to be responsibilities, like there should be something in terms of like who does what. And by the time we apply for the second time, like you're clear like who does what, and what are the things which matters to each of the people. So we actually like talk about like who will own the sales part, who will own the tech part, and who will own the design or like support or any other functions. And yeah, I mean, like by the second time when we applied, we had a clear idea on these responsibilities. And I don't think it's like I would say like even if you applied with a founder who was before in your previous application and you have changed the co-founders, it's totally fine. And that happens within YC as well. So if you see people getting accepted into YC and then they think that like this is not the place for them, and then they move out of the company, that happens very regularly. So you should not feel bad about it. Just keep applying. It shouldn't matter. If you have a viable business, if you can say that like there is something which like about the business, and you can convince people that they you can sell this to customers, then yeah, nothing else matters.
For sure. And just to quickly put this to bed, like I don't run a YC company today, but I am a YC alum from a previous company, and that was almost 4 years and 2 companies ago. And YC impacted my life in a strong way, and I'm still feeling that. It's almost like a lifelong membership of a community. So so for sure, like definitely well worth it and well worth applying. Now let's talk about a little bit about equity, because I think this is one of the questions that was on people's minds briefly. And we'll get into the application form itself as well. 7% plus that extra dilution that comes from the extra piece. Let's talk about it. One of the questions that often comes is it worth it? And immediately, what's your kind of thoughts on this, Arjun?
Yep. So short answer, yes. In fact, we did that, right? Before we got in, we had a term sheet in hand at a 5 million valuation for our startup. And then we had applied to YC, but we hadn't got interview call. So I emailed YC and said, hey, I have another term sheet in hand and I would like to be interviewed. If you guys accept me, I will accept YC. So please interview me, right? So then I got an interview with Dalton, and basically at the end of the interview, they asked like, why are you doing this? Like, why do you want to get into YC? You have a $5 million valuation and you're giving away so much equity for this. Why do you want to do this, right? So basically they just put the question to us, and we said, see, this is the only thing, this is the top thing that we want, and this is why we have been applying 4 times in 2 years. And we want to get into YC, and we believe we can benefit from a YC in like A, B, and C. We showed examples of other startups like Meesho, which couldn't raise at demo day, right? But still they figured out, and it was with YC's help they got there, right? So we gave examples of that, and in fact accepted the 7% dilution instead of the other term sheet, right? So yeah, so we can only speak from example, and it was well worth it, right? Because on demo day itself, if you're worried about dilution, it really doesn't matter, because on demo day you raise at such a high valuation that it's all a wash when you get there eventually, right? You don't give away, eventually you don't give away too much equity to at least other investors that way, and you have a great what do you call it, investor on your cap table at that moment. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about dilution and all, especially at the stage which you are applying to YC. Dilution should be the last thing on your mind. You just put yourself in a, like Pranav said, put yourself in such company that which will give you a higher odds of success in the long term. Like think $1 billion company. Assume you're building a $1 billion company, and it really won't matter whether you gave away, when you were at 1 million, that you gave away 7%. It really doesn't matter.
Got it. Okay. I see some folks are saying that my voice is not loud enough, so I hope it's coming through a little more clearly. I'll sit closer. Okay, let's dive into the application, Pranav. 7 days to go. Can folks do anything between now and the deadline to affect their application? Maybe create a wait list of customers and get some numbers going, bump some revenue, get some more downloads. Does all this matter, or is it just get it on an application, get it submitted, get it done right now?
Yeah, I think I personally believe that having some metrics is obviously good. So it's about telling a story, right? Like you're telling that you have this amazing idea which you are working on, and you have great founders who is capable of building this product, and you have built the product. Now you want a validation that, hey, I have this number of people who are looking at the product, or using the product or paying for the product. So that piece is, I believe, that's helpful. Yeah, 7 days is good. I mean, you can do a lot of things on that. Yeah, I mean, whatever you can do to improve the odds, I think you should definitely do. But yeah, again, having some metrics is definitely helpful. Unless you're very great at storytelling without metrics, I don't think it will be a convincing application. But at least, yeah, I mean, for the people who have found, and I've talked to, and at least in the community, I believe having metrics would really help.
Super.
And
let's get into, yeah, thank you. Let's get into the form, Arjun. Okay, so there's a dozen bigger questions, a bunch of smaller questions. Very often folks will start drafting it, copy and paste it into Google Doc, and start sharing it with their co-founders and then friends, and then obviously it comes to alums, right? I'm sure you both have seen this a number of times. So Arjun, should you show it to YC alums, to friends, to mentors? Should you, how many people should you show it to? How many different opinions should you take before you submit, Arjun?
Yeah, I mean, best way to find the answer to that question is just show it to 5 different people. You will get 5 different opinions, right? So you'll quickly learn that it's a bad idea to get too many opinions, right? So yeah, maybe 1 or 2 if you can get it, and just what do you call it? Just go with that, right? Don't overthink this process. So just do a genuine job. Just read that question, and from your perspective, just do a genuine job answering that, right? Then take 1 or 2 opinions, so that if you're obviously doing something wrong, they'll pick it up, right? So they may, you may think you explained your startup really well, and when you share the doc with one person, it's like, I have no clue what you're working on, right? Can you explain it to me? Yeah, then that's good enough, right? So you don't have to kind of test it out with 20 different people or anything. So if you can get opinion from an actual YC YC Alum, I would recommend that, right? That would be the best way to go about it. But other than that, I wouldn't take too many opinions because it'll just delay the process also. Because I know founders, like really big founders of YC, who applied last minute, spent 20 minutes on the application, right? So don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. Just apply again. Don't worry about trying to impress them or building the perfect application. Because think about it. There are probably 15,000 application, 100 reviewers who would, maybe 100 or 200 reviewers who would probably read hundreds of applications, right? So really that extra 2% you put in is not going to make a big difference unless you have, focus on your metrics. Like if you have revenue, talk about revenue. If you have users, talk about users. Revenue is the best thing. The second best thing is users, actual people who are using your product. If you don't have both, try to get something like a letter of intent or some signed contracts, something that indicates that you will eventually have users or revenue. If you have nothing, then focus on your story, right? But other than that, I wouldn't overthink the application.
Yeah, Pranav, B2C, B2B, marketplace, download, what metrics are important here? It varies, right? It varies a lot.
Yeah, it varies from company to company. Like, yeah, ideally, like my personal belief is that, like, at the end, you're building a business, you'd have to have some kind of revenue, but maybe like it might not be the right metric for the initial stages. Whereas, when we applied, we were applying with number of GitHub stars, which showed the adoption of the project, which we are working on. So basically, like, at the early stages, figure out what is the important metric which you're tracking. It can be like daily active users, monthly active users. It can be number of downloads. It can be I don't think like signups count, because it's again like something which you can I mean, like it's not something like which is very valid, but I mean, like having something which matters to the business, like on a recurring basis, that's something like which you should focus on. But I think to the previous question, I have a little bit of a different take here. I would say, like, get it reviewed from someone if you're applying for the first time, and if you haven't done an application like this before, because one of the key things is to make it simple. And whenever people say that, like, keep it simple, we try to like over optimize it and make it like short form, versus like it's not explaining the things properly, and you might be using a lot of jargon which the person who is reading the application might not really understand. So getting the reviews would be helpful in that case, where keeping the simplicity of the answers and how you can structure the questions, how you can structure the answers would be would be helpful if you get a review.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm going to take some questions from here now, which are to the theme that we're talking about. Cjo Lewis is asking, is a waitlist valid if the product is yet to be launched? Arjun, like, some folks are so early that they haven't even launched yet, right? So they were worried, what's relevant here. And I've seen this work really well with, I think it was with FanPay, where they just got this huge like wait list from like a spinny game, and they just showed that they could go viral with that. Then they got in. That wasn't even their product, right? And then they actually launched their product, and obviously did incredibly well. So what are your thoughts about this kind of wait list, LOIs?
Exactly. So that's the third level I mentioned. If you have revenue, lead with revenue. If you have active users, you use that. If you don't have both, then show some indicator where you can argue that, hey, people, if I made this, people would actually use it or pay me for it, right? A waitlist is a good example of that, because not many startups, if you put something up, 1,000 people will sign up for a waitlist, right? That's a good indicator of good data to show that people will eventually pay. So yeah, waitlist, LOIs, there's this company that makes jet planes in YC. And they had written a letter of intent. That's the LOI. They had letters of intent from actual like plane makers that if they made this, they would buy, right? Great indicator that there is demand for that, right? So if you are building a B2C startup, a wait list are a very valid way to show that there is demand for your product, right? So what Pranav was touching on is, don't say signups, right? Signups, maybe like, I don't know, you could show sign up, but there's maybe a better way to show it as usage, or explicitly mention it's a wait list so that people would use it, right? So sign up, then the next question, they'll be like, are people using it? So then if you have a lot of signups and then you have no monthly active users, you're kind of shot yourself in the foot explaining that, right? So that way, so again, don't do things to convince YC, do things to convince yourself. If you are convinced that your waitlist is a great indicator that people are going to buy from you in the future, then great, right? And you confidently put that up in the application.
Cool. Pranav, a couple of other things that are coming out here. The video, let's talk about that, right? Actually, there's probably two videos. One is like a demo video, and one's the co-founder video. Talk us through your video. What do you think worked well? And so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were applying in middle of pandemic, so we just got into a Zoom call, recorded that, and made it like, you know, less than a minute. So I think, yeah, there are couple of key things which you would have to remember. One is like, you know, keep it below 1 minute, which is clearly mentioned in the application. So yeah, I mean, follow that direction and properly. Then all of the founders should be on the call. I think one of the reasoning is that, like, you know, if you are only one person applying for, applying to like one person in the video applying to YC, and you have 3 co-founders listed in the application, then, you know, people may think that, you know, your co-founders didn't even know that you have applied to YC, which is a bad, bad indicator of your own, communication. So don't do that. You know, if you can't be in the same place, I think, like, you know, a Zoom call would work, and then, you know, record that and then, you know, put that. So yeah, explain who you are and why you want to be in YC, and, like, you know, what is the company, and explain that in, like, you know, 1 or 2 sentences, and, you know, explain your progress, like what you have done so far and where you're at right now. And yeah, that's it. Like, you know, you just have that much time for that 1 minute video. Keep it short, keep it simple. And yeah, I mean, like, don't do like marketing kind of videos. It would be like, you know, keep it simple, just a Loom video or a Zoom call, and a recording would definitely work.
Right. So no, you know, professional studios, right? And
Yeah.
so Arjun, like, just keeping it simple, a Zoom, sit together if you can, or if not on Zoom, recorded a Loom video for the demo. Let's come to the demo video in a second, but the team video, keep it short, I guess, keep it concise. It's only 60 seconds. Don't go over that. That's clear, right?
Yeah.
Arjun, like, how much to split to the team, to the business, the half of the video, 30 seconds?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, see, the thing that they're trying to figure out is, what are you working on, right? So that's the most important question. So if you can explain that in very simple terms, for example, for my company, like, try to avoid jargon and just say, oh, we make it easy for online merchants to sell on WhatsApp. That's it, right? So at least they understood. Then half the battle is won. And then if there is anything important about the co-founders, they should know. It is good to mention that because for us, we had known each other for 20 years before we got into YC. So we mentioned that during the call, right? Saying, and we are working on this for 2 years. So on our 4th attempt, we mentioned that we've been applying to YC for 2 years now, 4th time. So we mentioned that. So maybe that message would get across, right? But mostly it is them. The objective of the video is the same as the application. They're just trying to understand what you're making. Have you made any progress? Who are you guys? Why are you the correct people to apply for it, right? So if there is something that you can mention saying, hey, I had an online business where I talked a lot on WhatsApp before. So I got this insight that this is the right way to do it, or this would be a good thing for other merchants to buy. So if you have any unique insights like that, now is the time to mention that, right? Or you may be working in the industry and you came across this problem. So if you can mention that on why you guys are the right people to work on this problem, it would be a good thing to mention that, right? Otherwise, just explain the problem, what progress you have made, something about the founders. And if both speak, that'll be great.
Great. Co-founders, Adnan Shaji and one anonymous attendee are asking, do I need a co-founder? Founded startups. Any quick thought on that, Pranav?
Yeah, I think applying. So it's basically like, it's not just about applying to IC. It's about building the company. Like, can you do it alone? Yeah, I mean, like it's the problem with having a single founder. At least, like, in my my understanding is, if you come up with a problem, you don't have anyone else to talk to, like, who have the same context as you, to get a different opinion. So I guess, like, having a co-founder would help you a lot. It's not a mandatory thing as far as I understand, because they would like YC encourages you to have a co-founder, but like we in our batch, like, there were a lot of people like who are solo founders and were trying to, like, find find co-founders within the batch. So yeah, I mean, having a co-founder is not really like a mandatory thing, but it's definitely encouraged. And if you can find someone who you can work with, who very well, even before applying to YC, when you start the company, that's definitely helpful. And in the long run, like, if you trust the person, it would make things easier.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen that. I think 10%, if I'm not wrong, something like that is the historical average. It's increased, interestingly, are solo founded. And I just think it helps, right, to have that strength, the superpower Venn diagram, the overlapping superpowers, and also the split of work and focus, and just such a tough journey, and sharing that journey with others. Wow, and YC definitely appreciates that more than anyone, I think. So in my view, having the co-founder is a bonus. I just don't think it's 100% necessary. If you want to apply and you're thinking, I don't have a co-founder, so I'm not going to apply, that's wrong. Apply anyway.
Exactly.
And then along the journey, interestingly, YC has now developed their application form that you can actually add a co-founder through after submission. You can even make changes to 3 sections. I believe the co-founder section, the revenue section, and have you raised money section. These are the 3 sections. The other parts you can't change so much, but these 3 you can submit changes. It used to be that you have to email them to do that, right? But now you can just submit it right there. And you can even remove a co-founder. So don't worry about that. If you thinking through that, just apply even as a solo founder. Cool. We're going to invite Jolly on stage. Sorry, did you want to add to that, Tarjan?
No, I echo both your thoughts there. Having a co-founder is good. Don't do it. It has nothing to do with YC application. If you have a co-founder, it probably increases the odds of success eventually. So in turn, it will help you with your YC application. But YC, there's no rule. So again, I think all the questions are about, should I apply to YC? Because
right.
A, B, and C. So just apply. Like, don't worry about it. They've seen everything. Lots of examples of solo founders, GitLab, just look at GitLab, look at the solo founder, right? And there are lots of examples of 2 founders, 3 founders, 4 founders, all examples are there. So don't worry about it. Just go ahead.
For sure. Jolly is
hi Ananda.
Hey,
So
Jolly.
my so we are a social centric startup, okay, which is focusing on making a difference to the elderly segment, senior citizens, okay. So I really don't know like how YC like will be helping like to support us and all. I don't have much idea, and I'm new to this entrepreneurship journey. Maybe like over the last 1 year, that's all. Prior to that, like I was working with a couple of corporates, as an HR leader and all. So my question is like, will they really like support social focused startups or only like tech based startups, like so that's my query to it.
Thanks, Jolly.
And this is a I think like world centric problem what we are addressing, because
Sure.
elderly population is growing up across the globe, and especially in Kerala, like this is a concern now. Maybe in next 20 years, like I think one of the largest maybe like growing state, right, compared to any other state in India. Maybe
Sure.
like our trend will be equivalent to Japan. Okay.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah.
Jolly. There's questions by so we'll just quickly dive into this. I'll just give a quick response to this one, Jolly, is that if you're applying in the for-profit segment, because by the way, they take non-profits as well. This sounds like a for-profit, not the non-profit one.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you're
we
applying
are profit focused. Yeah,
Perfect,
but
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but social centric, social
for
focused.
sure. I just think that the one thing they're always looking for is large market. So as long as you have large market and large revenue to attack, I think the answer is for sure apply. The question of applying or not applying, it applies to you for sure, and I can understand why you're thinking that. But regardless, for sure apply, because there have been successful applicants and even successful companies that are in the YC community that have
Right.
focused on the market that you're focusing on. So I don't think there's any question of that, Joe.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Anil.
Kali.
Thanks for
Sabarish,
clarifying that.
thank you. Sabarish Govind. Sabarish Govind, would you like to ask a question? Okay.
There's a YC startup called Papa or something which does exactly that, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
should probably look there up.
Sabarish Govind, please unmute if you can. If not, then I'll go to Adam. Adam Shamsuddin. You want to ask a quick question, Adam? Unmute, please. Okay, let's try Akash Ashok. You want to ask your question or just unmute? Or Adam's come online. Adam, yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm the founder of Grow the Fun Guy. So we are working in a different domain, like the previous question. So I was also a techie, meaning I have worked with Valley startups, but now I'm working on a totally different domain, that is mushroom supplements and mushroom grow kits. So like, do they actually, invest in such companies? You have already answered this question, but since you are in the alumni network, I just want to know if it's worth, spending my time applying for it.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Pranav, quick one on this. I guess briefly, same again, right? Large enough market.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like, this is, if I'm not wrong, like, if it's an agri-tech, I've seen, like, other companies who are in the same agriculture domain or like an agri-tech domain. So yeah, I don't think like, like applying to YC is not, yeah, there are like multiple, advantages. One is basically the network. So if you're becoming an entrepreneur and if you want to build a bigger business, you need that network. And I think getting into YC is one of the easiest way to get to that. I mean, like venture capitalists or like, founders who are successful. So yeah, I would definitely like, encourage to apply. And even as I said, like before, you just applying to like answering the questions yourself, you would actually like learn a lot from that about your business. If you don't know or if you can't answer some of the questions, then yeah, definitely like, that's a point where you can improve on, which might help you in the long run. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Adam. Another example of a similar company. There's this company in the last batch that was making milk without cows, right? So yeah, anything you can think of, there's probably another YC company who's already doing that.
For sure. Thanks, Adam. Let's go to Akash or Sabarish, if you could unmute. Akash. Akash Ashok, can you hear me? You're unmuted. Would you like to speak, Akash?
Sir, can you hear me?
Okay, let's go to Sabarish Govind. Yeah,
Sir, my name is Sabarish Govind.
Yeah.
I am from MES College Marambali, studying BBA department currently. Sir, we have a startup. It is currently working in incubation center, sir. My startup's name is Alpha Z Energy, ALFA Z Energy. It mainly focuses on producing green hydrogen.
Great. And
from solar energy, renewable solar energy, sir.
Cool.
But
Great.
sir, we have a beginners. We have a beginners. Not only I am. I have my team called Vishnu, Mr. Vishnu, Miss Nesrin, and Mr. Sadat, etc.
Can you precisely ask your question or what you want to know from this panelist?
Sir, we have needed some funds for introducing our projects. Sir, if government give supports for getting this fund?
Yeah, I'll answer for this. Like, okay, Sabarish, we can like I take this question offline because we are now focusing on like very specific to YC startups application and everything.
Okay,
so
sir.
I'll share my I have your contact details. I'll get back to you.
Okay,
great.
sir. Okay,
Thanks,
sir.
Ambarish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Akash Ashok, otherwise we'll go to Arasi Arul. Yeah.
Hey, hi guys.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks.
for the session. I've been like quoting a lot of questions, and this has been great. The first question is, we are three co-founders, and we've had series of other startups before. All the three of us have been very successful. But for this particular startup, one of the guy is having only 5% equity. So how important is a 10% equity bracket for Y Combinator?
Yeah.
That's my first question. And
I'll
the
just
second,
quickly, I'll just
Sure.
quickly answer that. To apply, you have to have 10% as a
Okay.
co-founder. So you
Okay, and so
decide if you want that person to become a YC alum, participate
Okay.
in the batch program, be involved as a founder level in the paperwork, etc.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's your choice really. But to be a
Okay, cool.
YC alum, you have to have 10%, I believe.
Okay, great. Okay, and so right now we have 5%, but we don't mind giving him 10% because he's practically my brother. And so is it okay if I apply now, say that we are going to change it to 10% the next few weeks and then send them
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
details?
That's fine,
Okay.
because the shareholding you don't have to stick to right now, but when it comes to
Okay.
the paperwork, they have to
Okay.
be included. at
Okay,
10%.
great. Okay. The second part of the question is, how many startups which actually got into Y Combinator raised the second round of fund during the demo day? Because I was part of a program called Accelerating Asia, which is something very similar to Y Combinator from Singapore. And none of us, we were like 8 of us in the batch, and none of us raised money during the demo day. So what is the percentage of it happening in Y Combinators? And the last question is for both Arjun and Pranav, because you guys have applied multiple times, and like you, Arjun, I think I've applied for 3 times with the Y Combinator, and this will be my 4th time. Yeah. And so the hack question, do you guys write the same answer for the hack question every time, or does it change?
Okay,
Okay.
Pranav, do you want to take these two? So first thing, I just briefly, I don't think YC releases demo day in raising data. I just think it's a large portion, so I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Okay, thank
But
you.
we're gonna, it's just, something that I think that people focus too much on of the demo day raise and what it's gonna be, and is it gonna really,
Okay.
like, I think
Okay.
the answer is, if you've got a strong company, you're gonna raise, and YC is gonna
Okay.
actually increase that, the chances of
Chances.
you raising and
Absolutely.
the capital that you'll raise significantly.
Okay.
So that's probably answers it. Pranav, do you want to take the second one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think so before coming to that, like the first question itself, I think it can be different experience for different people. Like somebody races in a day or two, somebody races in a month, somebody
Okay.
races in 6 months.
Okay.
But essentially, partners would be working with you if you are still working on the product and the problem. That's something which I've seen. But again, as Anand said, I don't have any numbers or metrics which
Okay.
can validate. But I've seen people working with them, working with people who were not able to raise. But eventually, after 6 months or 1 year down the lane, you're all have raising the similar amount of money. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't think that's a worry. Unless if you have a business, I guess the odds of getting a next round of funding is very high.
Thank you.
It has
Yeah.
increased now, right? Because YC will give you 150K. The day you you get that call saying you're in, you get 150K. And then they invest another 350K at whatever terms that you raise on demo day or before that, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So then it basically increases your chance of success because you've already kind of covered your round. So it'd be very highly unlikely that you won't raise unless you have
Okay.
absolutely no traction or something like that, right? So the more chances are that you will raise than you will not raise. So it's very rare for a YC company at demo day to not raise, because it means you would have probably wasted your previous 90 days. You've blown all your revenue, your team, there's something wrong with it. So highly unlikely that you won't raise, right? So if there's any place where you will raise, it'll be at the YC demo day.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
And the last question about the hack question.
Yeah.
Okay, go on, Pranav. Yeah.
No, I did the same. I haven't changed it, so yeah, I've got nothing more to add.
I don't think
Okay.
I don't think it matters. So.
If you have 4 different hacks that you've done in your life,
I don't even have one hack. I have no clue what the hack is. And so it's been crazy to answer that question. Anyways, thanks a lot.
I think some folks that read the question from the application partner side do consider it importantly. Others pay much attention to
give you
it.
an
But
insight
I
on
think
the
that
question, actually. So the objective of that question was at YC, like Paul Graham at one point were worried that this application process was not good enough to attract a certain kind of founder who may have done a startup or created revenue or something like that. But they may have done something like this, which would have indicated that they have that ability to build a startup, right? So one of the founders suggested this question to ask, hey, to catch people, to surface people like that, can we ask this, can we include this question in the application, right? So that's why it's there. So, so if you have nothing else to fill in the all the other places, then just do a great filling this answer.
Sure. Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate you taking time.
thanks very much, Arati. Let's dive into some of the Q&A here. Oh, actually, sorry. Akash, are you ready to unmute? Okay, we still can't hear you. I guess it must be your microphone. So we'll come back to you, yeah? Okay, let's dive into some of this Q&A here.
Good evening. Good evening.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we
Audible?
can hear you now. Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah, please go ahead. And
Good evening. Good evening. I'm sorry if this question was answered earlier, but regarding the video that need to be uploaded, is there a chance where it is mandatory that you have to be in person and speak about your product or yourself, or you can incorporate some kind of explanatory video of your product within that 60-second video? So is it flexible to do so?
no, there's two videos. There's the founder video where you
Yes.
introduce yourself as a team and perhaps your vision. And then there's a product demo, which is another video. It's completely separate. The first one is 60 seconds. The second one doesn't express a time limit, but we suggest 60 seconds, I think. And in that video, you show your product on screen live. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, a question regarding the second demo video. Is it something like a sort of like a marketing or presentation video that we need to prepare, or we have to be in person and present the demo somewhere, Zoom or something?
I think just very brief, short, concise, no marketing, no jargon, no PowerPoints. They hate that. Just go straight to your product. Show your product on screen, clicking, showing like a Loom video, use Loom
Just
to
screen
show
recording.
exactly how the product works. Right, Arjun?
Yeah, just a screen recording of, they're just trying to understand what you're making, right? So just do screen recording and say, okay, if I click here and send a message, it'll show up on screen, then the user can respond. Whatever you're making, just try to show that, right? Yeah, if you're making, I don't know, green hydrogen, how you show it, but they're just trying to understand, like exactly this question. So they are just trying to understand what the hell is green hydrogen. So if you can make anything that just explains what you're doing, that's great. Like, don't worry about the quality of it, right?
Great.
Yeah, I think like simple, like if you're making like a hardware startup or something which has something physical, I mean, like, just take an iPhone video and then, explain what it is. I think that's the easiest. Just don't spend time creating a marketing video around it, which is like, the anti-YC way of doing it.
Yeah, right. For sure. Okay, there's questions piling up, so we're gonna do a fast fire round here. Pranav Raj. All right, Subhash Narayan. Is it essential to have the company registered in US to get funding support, and how is the company valuation done? Pranav?
Yeah, I think when you apply, it's not it's not required, but after you get accepted into IC, I think like you have, as far as I remember, like there are 3 options. One, you can register in Delaware and start a company there. I guess there is one more option in Cayman Islands, and then you can either incorporate in Singapore. So whichever is convenient for you based on your market and based on the type of the product, you can incorporate that later. But that can happen after you apply and you get into IC. So yeah, initially, like even if you are in India, like have a private limited company, that should be okay. I guess like Arjun did that, right?
So to apply, again, there's no excuse not to apply. Keep repeating the same thing. Just apply. And then if you get funded, before they transfer the money to your account, you have to be registered according to, they'll tell you, send you information on this. This is like the acceptable ways to register before we can give you money. So just follow that process, right, at that time.
Great. Yeah, thank you. The company valuation, I'll come to that in a second. Pinky Jayaprakash is asking about she started a company with an MVP as a service company in 2020, now completed 5 years, 23. Is it still possible? Yes, of course it is. Doesn't matter if you've got a new product, new service, same company, no problem, start applying with that. Is Layla Zafar is asking, is applying to YC region specific? I'm not sure what exactly the question means, but my guess is what you're asking is, do you have to be India focused if you're in India, something like that? No, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can apply from anywhere and doing anything. As long as I think the market is large enough and it's venture backable, they'll look at it for sure, right? Okay, so Aras here, a couple of questions here about equity. It's 7% for 125,000. The rest of the money for 375,000 is an MFN safe. Please look at the Q&A on their website. They'll go through that. We'll try and focus on more of the application stuff here. What percentage raise funds during demo day? I think we addressed that. Krishnamurti, about dilution. I think we'll take that offline. For the hack question, we've done that. Hardware startups, quick one. We've seen a few hardware startups, Pranav, even from India, I think half a dozen hardware startups. Is it harder to get into YC with a hardware startup?
I don't know, like, I'm not the right person to ask that question.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give a quick
To
one.
succeed as a startup, as a hardware startup, right? That's the real
Right. Right. No, I've seen that there's a YC hardware community. Obviously,
Yeah.
a smaller portion, but I don't think it's any smaller than the number of startups in the global community being hardware focused. It's probably even higher actually. So
It was a hardware startup, right?
right, exactly. So there's a bunch from India I know of. So yeah, for sure, you should definitely apply it. I don't think that's a blocker at all. It was even a partner that focused on YC hardware startups as well. Okay, could you please clarify if YC considers metrics and revenue when evaluating hard tech startups? Deepu Varghese, I think they realized that hard tech startups take much longer. In my batch 5 years ago, there was a company that was building drones to spray crops, and they knew that it's going to take like 4 years just to get a license in the plane in the drone in the air, right? So, and it took them 5 years, or it took them longer, to do that, to eventually get it commercial and revenue wise. So I don't think that's an issue, Deepu. Do founders need to move to California after getting selected by YC? Pranav, you're in California. Did you any quick one on that?
Yeah, it's not a mandatory thing for you to move. So for like, there is the program for like, 3 months. So once you get into YC, I think like this is for the next summer batch. So you'll come here for 3 months, and then you can decide whether you want to stay here or whether you want to go back. Like, if I've seen like people doing different things. If you're building a global SaaS product, it's better to be in the valley. But like, if you're building something very specific to India, or maybe like something very specific to the market, Asian market, then I guess being in India might be helpful. So it depends on, there is no hard rule that like you should be here, but ideally like for that 3 months, if you are here, it will be much more easier than being remote and like getting in the Zoom call. So yeah,
You have to be where it increases the chances of success.
yeah,
Right. The Airbnb founders, for example, Paul Graham asked them to go to New York because that's where your customers are, right? So they used to fly back and forth between New York and California during the program. So it's not YC, right? The founders have to be where it increases the odds of success of your startup. If it's the US, yeah, US. If it's in India, it's India.
Yeah. Anonymous attendee asking, does it matter how long ago the company was registered? Not at all. Just, as long as you're building something that's a big enough market, and is, and you have that understanding of what you're doing now and what you want to apply with, I don't think the company registration date, they don't even ask that, right? So yeah. Okay, Deepu was asking, does YC inquire about a project that's government funded or not? I'm not sure the nature of that, but if it's, I don't think they care if it's government funded or not. I think what they'll care is it a large enough market, and is the team and the product and the metrics and those things. Whether you have government funding, it's nice to have, I guess, but I'm not sure if it really matters here. Anonymous attendee, is it important that there needs to be an in-person video of the founder, or can be about video of the product? Again, 2 different videos. I think we addressed that one earlier. Abhiram, should we launch our MVP before applying to YC? Pranav, I think you took this earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting some metrics is helpful, but yeah, I mean, like, get to your users, collect some feedback, which might also help you to build your case. So yeah.
Cool. Kieran Dev is asking, does the friends and family fundraise capital matter in the application? Should I be including the amount in the fundraise section? Arjun?
Yeah, I mean, just include if you have raised something. See, only thing they're trying to figure out is have you done something so bad that it becomes uninvestable? For example, there are startups that I know gave away 30% of their company for $25,000. So then they'll make a note of it, and if they are accepting you, they'll probably ask you, go to that investor and say, tear up that paper and start afresh before we can invest. If you can get that done, we'll invest in you, right? So they just want to know if there's anything they should consider before investing in you. That's all. So, or if you have raised like a large amount of money, then it's actually a positive to show that, oh, you've actually convinced people to invest in you. That may turn out to be positive. It's just for information. Nothing happens because you include that, right?
Cool. Thanks, Kieran. Vinod Mullah Cyril is asking, as a YC alum, what is the best win after getting into YC? We'll focus on the application form here because there's a lot here. Layla Zafar is asking, is it hard to get into YC as a social impact startup since it's a bit harder to show tangible physical presence as opposed to a product-based startup? Also, how could one prepare a social impact startup to join YC? Layla, I think if it's a non-profit, they definitely accept them, even from India, we've seen. If it's for-profit, as long as the revenue opportunity to a path to 100 million, that kind of thing is there. I just think that the fact that it's social impact is not by any means a negative. I think you should definitely apply. And it may be harder to show the path to that revenue, but if you believe it, then and it's there for you, then for sure just try to show it in the right way. The fact that it's not a SaaS product or a mobile app with download with users for an e-commerce marketplace or something, I think it's just you have to choose the metric that shows the path to revenue, and the social impact thing is not that important. Is YC sector agnostic? Yeah, they invested in everything, right? There was a company, mining, planning to mine meteors, like it's like real moonshots, right? Yeah, I think Arjun?
It's just the same question again and again. Should I apply? So there's no excuse
Yeah,
not to
right.
apply. There's nothing you can build that will exclude you from YC, right? So just
Yeah.
go and apply.
For sure. Shaz Mohammed, how can we demonstrate the market size in the application? Can we add a link to a pitch deck? Shaz, they don't look at pitch decks at all. They positively actually ask you not to use them. Pranav, how do you demonstrate the market size in the application form?
Yeah, I think like writing that down in a couple of sentences is something which you can definitely do. So maybe you can start with what's the type of the customer, how much are they going to pay you, and how many such customers are there, and that presents large enough opportunity. So for example, if you're a SaaS product for a business, then each business is paying you $1,000 per month, then you need X number of such companies to get to 100 million, and there are such that number of companies in the world. So yeah, I mean, I would do that approach. I would take that approach where you do a bottoms-up calculation of how you would present to $100 million or $1 billion opportunity. So yeah.
Nishant is asking, can a YC alum, I read that YC alums can recommend startups. Is that true? Yes, it's definitely true, Nishant. They definitely read the application form, alumni recommendations. They take them seriously. I don't think it's necessary to get 100 recommendations. I just think it's important that the alum kind of knows you. So don't randomly just ask someone who's never heard of you. I think it's important to build a relationship. I think it's important that they know what you're doing. And I think it's definitely helpful. I just think 2 or 3 good quality alumni recommendations will certainly help for sure. Otherwise, they wouldn't have built that feature, right, Arjun?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so that's the importance of having a network, right? And attending events like this, meeting people. So you build those relationships. And so then it'll also give those alums a chance to, learn about you, figure you out as a person and all that stuff. And then if alums feel like, hey, you know what, this would be a great addition to the YC community. They'll go and recommend you to YC, right? It'll be good to have you as part of the community. So, and yeah, 1 or 2 recommendations is good enough. So so that's why, like, don't start thinking about applying to YC 7 days before the deadline and then expect everything to fall into place. Like, that's why, just like a startup, it takes time to set this up and build relationships and all that stuff. So yeah, if you have recommendations, it's actually great because YC takes that seriously.
Yeah, no, look, we're 6 to 7 days before the deadline. Submit it. If the alum can submit their recommendation soon, it's great. The deadline is not for the alum's recommendation. The deadline is for your application. The alums can even recommend after that, but they're not going to read the application form on the day of the deadline. The YC partners, they're going to read it sometime thereafter. Now, it could be a week later, it could be a month later. You just don't know. So get the recommendations in sooner than later. But I think it's important that you do try to seek out recommendations, but don't worry if you can't get them. It's absolutely not a blocker at all. Right? Anonymous attendees are asking, how is life before and after YC? Okay, we'll focus more on the application form here. What are the documents we have to submit to YC? Asking about the financial preps or documents. There's no documents at all. It's just the application form. A login, you'll see it's actually quite straightforward, surprisingly. There's no pitch decks. They don't look at that. They don't look at any attachments. There's no photos. There's nothing like that. Just 2 videos and the application form. Okay, Shaz is asking, does YC fund $500,000 once you get selected to batch? All the funding happens if you do well in the demo day? No, it's at the moment you get selected, you receive the funding.
You have a 10-minute interview, and if you get in, you have $150,000 in the bank. That's it, right? It's not complicated. It's the easiest process in the world.
Yeah, cool. Ashin KAK, is it mandatory to keep HQ in US? No, you can keep it your parent entity in Singapore, Cayman, or US. And that answer is a much longer discussion, which we won't focus on here. But it cannot be India. If you have an Indian entity already, they'll ask you to flip to the US where you have a US parent. If you don't have an entity already, they'll ask you to set up one of those 3 jurisdictions and put an Indian subsidiary under it. So yeah, we'll talk more about that in another talk, I think. Hari Krishnan, how YCC startups in the renewable industry? They love it. They actually put out a call for startups in the green sector, renewable sector. That was a few years ago. I think they keep repeating that. So for sure. Farzina PA asks, will being a Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub member help to get into YC? You know, I really don't think they care. I think what they care about is your application and whether your product addresses consumer needs. You know, all these badges and these, you know, kind of big famous board of advisors. YC's never been in favor of that kind of stuff, right, Pranav?
Yeah, I think it's just basically like the application. I mean, people are like funded businesses are getting into YC. Some of them don't get into YC. So I guess like, it's basically like, how you present well in the application. If it's good, they might select it. I don't think like, there's maybe like, it can be a good thing that like, you already got into Microsoft startups thing, because like, you already have shown some promise to somebody else, which might be a good thing.
Yeah. If it mattered, it would have been specifically asked in the application, right?
Right.
It's not.
Yeah, I think like there is a section for, asking like whether you're part of previous accelerators or something. Yeah, I think like, it's probably that. You can definitely put that there.
Sorry, I missed that. Okay, if they're asking about that, then yes, of course, they do ask that question. I don't think they're asking so that, you can't do another one. I think they genuinely just want to know what your equity structure is.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
Goes back to that question about, is there any things that from a funding perspective they should know about and take care of before funding you, right? It's just information. So go ahead.
Shahul Hamid is asking, should one or all founders physically be present at SF for some time? Yeah, so now I think the program is partially in person, but it's voluntary. A lot of Indian founders, for example, are having visa problems. It's not mandatory for all of you to come for the whole batch. It's not even mandatory for any of you to come for any part of the batch. I think still you're all invited to come for parts of the batch, the start, the middle, the end. They have these kind of 1 week things. The full residential in-person program, that doesn't happen anymore. I think mine or a couple of batches after mine was the last to do that. but yeah, it's optional, I think now. But again, that guidance, please see online. Krishna's asking, we have to move to USA. What visa is provided? Pranav, quick one on that.
Yeah, I think like, it's you come here on B1, B2, like just general business visa, and then you figure out like, how your business is doing and maybe switch to an appropriate visa. Yeah, it's case to case basis. I don't have a single answer for that.
Cool. Is it worth, Hari Krishna's asking, is it worth to try YC co-founder matching tool? I've seen the success of this. I found my current co-founder on YC Startup School co-founder matching tool. An amazing tool. I love it. I think it's brilliant. I think 43% of the last batch that was successfully admitted completed startup school. And I don't know how many found their co-founder in startup school, but certainly 43%. I've heard that number. It's a phenomenal number. Like almost half of the batch came through startup school. YC loves their own product. Startup school works. I've done it. In many ways, I thought it was even better than in some ways, I thought it was even better than the in-person program. It's a massive open online course. It's got some great content. It's very well structured. They've seen the technology very nicely. I strongly recommend it. And it shows that you're determined. So I strongly recommend it, and that they see it in the application form, that it's the same username and ID that you did with your application form. So Hari, yeah, please look at that. And the co-founder matching tool, definitely worth it. The product works. I can vouch for that. All right. Subhash Narayan, once you registered, what are the regulatory filings? Okay, we'll take offline. Subhash Narayan, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can talk you through some of the regulatory filings in US. We'll focus more on the application form here. Will we have to move? We answered that. Mohammed Ashik is asking, my product is not yet ready. Then I will be uploading in the, what will I upload in the product video? I guess, Mohammed, upload what you can, right? There's unfortunately, they need a YouTube link, which, you may be aware that you can't edit YouTube links. You can't post a new video against an existing YouTube link. So that's kind of one of the unfortunate things, but submit what you have, right? With a Vimeo link, it's different, right? With a Vimeo link, you can upload a new video against the Vimeo link, so you can keep it trading until they watch it. But with YouTube, you can't do that. So upload what you have, and they just want to, and honestly, they just want to understand what it is you do, right? So don't make it fancy. Don't worry about production quality. Don't worry about any fancy animations. Just what does your product do, right? Okay, Subhash is asking, does YC pay or meet the cost for the 3 months to stay in LA? So that comes out of your investor money, Subhash. They'll invest up $500,000 and just comes out of that, right? So Anonymous is asking, because of law requirements, I have given 10% shares to my mom. She's not present. Okay, it's fine. Capital structures, Pranav or Arjun, any problem with the capital structure of the company? No impediment. Right?
No, I don't think like that would be a problem.
So, yeah. See,
Yeah, but I think like you would actually restructure that, but yeah. I mean, whatever is there initially, I don't think like that would actually matter.
Exactly. Just mention that, and if they admit you, they'll probably have a discussion about that on how to structure it correctly so that they can invest. So it's a secondary question, so don't worry about it.
Cool. Munavar Furs is asking, I think the most important factors YC considers is clarity. What would be the key factors you need to have clarity on? Pranav?
Yeah, I think it's basically like how you write the answers. So whenever you try to explain something, say for example, there is a question on, like there are questions where it has like more than one question, like it might have like 3 different questions, like what is your product, why is it different, and who you actually like fear most. And what happens most of the time is like you would answer the first question and skip the second and third, thinking that like you have already answered that. So basically read between the lines and like answer to each question specifically and make it simple. I mean, yeah, I think like you can make it as complex as possible if you are thinking in a marketing line, but like keep the answers simple so that like people can understand. And yeah, that comes from clarity as well. Like how do you explain your business in like, let's say like 2 or 3 different like small sentences, and if you can do that very well, that's what they are looking for. Yeah.
Anonymous
Michael Siebel has that line, right? 80% effective, 80% effective and 20%. I forget that line. He said, "Yeah, don't worry about getting it like 100% accurate. Just make sure it's effective and they understand what it is, right?" So just keep it simple, and they just trying to get an excuse to admit you for the interview, right? They're trying to help you just get in. So any excuse that you can give them is great, and the big portion of it, they have to understand what you're doing, right? So just keep it simple, avoid all technical jargon or any industry jargon that they may not understand. So just keep it super simple and just answer what you're doing. Don't try to impress.
Yeah, I
Don't-
think it's a common thing. It's okay, we are going to revolutionize a particular industry. It's very high level, but I think you should very specifically talk about what you are changing and why it matters. So yeah, I mean, if you make it that simple, that will give the person who is actually reading the application much more context. So yeah, I mean, they're trying to paint a picture about your startup. So if you can't do that in a couple of sentences, then it'll be hard for them to at least take an interview. So yeah.
Okay, great. Has anyone actually gotten into YC with no recommendations? Yeah, I did.
I didn't have any.
Yeah, so all three of us got in without any recommendations. So there you go. I don't think you need one. I think it helps. If you have one, it can help. I don't think you need one. I think that it's perfectly fine not to have. Okay. Anas EA is asking, are there any government regulations or norms that we need to be aware of to receive funding? Longer answer, Anas, please reach out to me and I'll explain that to you. Abiram TV, will YC backs fitness industry related startups? Absolutely. There's several of them. There was a couple in my batch. So for sure. Raji P, is it important to have early revenue or beta tested product can be applied? Yes, it's good to have a beta tested product. Revenue is always a positive sign, especially in B2B, but again, not required. Apply anyway, and then you'll be able to show the iterations even if you don't get accepted. So yeah. Arasi, I'll come back to you. Anonymous is saying, is it mandatory to have a customer-based revenue, etc.? If not, does it give you an additional credit? Sorry if already asked. Yeah, it's good to apply if you have a customer-based revenue. If you don't worry, still apply. I think we keep saying just apply anyway. Okay, cool. I'm going to go to the live question from RLC again. Please raise your hands.
Yeah. Hey, thanks again. And Arjuna, I like the way you said that keep it very simple. Don't use the jargons. I think the first 2 times I used a lot of jargons. Anyways, I have a customer. We have paying customers, and one of the customer is very interested in investing, and they've given us a commitment. And so, how is it important that I put this? Because they are a user and they've given a commitment for our investment. And so, is that a good thing to put it up? And where do I put it? Because there is no particular place where they ask such a question.
Yeah, I think there was like a last question is there anything else we should know about your startup?
Yeah.
Just put it in there, right?
Okay.
And it's a good, and also one of the main questions is, how do you know people want what you're making? Like this is a great example, because if a customer is using your product and offering to invest, that's a good sign of saying, this is how I know people want what we're making, right? Just
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys. This session was really useful.
Thanks very much, Arasi. Alonjo Babu is asking, can an idea stage startup be recognized? Yeah, look, I would just say on this, idea with literally nothing is, just like an idea, and you don't have like anything you've done. I would say actually apply, but use the time to think through what you're going to do and actually do something. Because by the way, you can do something really fast. You can throw up a splash page, you can get waitlist, you can start even without coding. And I think that one of the things that I reflect on is that go as far as you can go without writing code, almost, right? In fact, I can't remember. I think it was Paul Graham who said that once, actually. So like test your thesis, get early traction through someone who wants to use something like this, do some surveys, but really just sitting on your backside and do absolutely nothing and just have an idea. I think YC sees through that, and actually YC partners have often said that they don't like that, right? Just shows that you're just like waiting until you get in to actually start doing something, right? And that I don't think is a great idea, right, Arjun?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, is there any good reason why it's still an idea stage? So then if you mention that, that'll be good, right? For example, you may, I don't know, need regulatory approval to build a drone or something. It'll take 4 years to do that. Yeah, then mention that, right? But otherwise, there are 100 other ways that you can show traction or validation doing that, right? In fact, like us as a startup, we sold to our first 4 corporate customers with just a PowerPoint presentation, pretending to be a product, right? So if you can get customer signed contracts for with that, there's no excuse to just apply to IC without doing anything, right? So yeah, I mean, if there's any good reason why it's still an idea stage, yeah, then go ahead and apply. But otherwise, do something, right? Do some kind of activity which validates that second question on why, how do you know people want what you're making, right? So if you're making some effort towards that, yeah, then it's great.
Great. Manu's asking, can you get the LinkedIn links? I'm posting it in the chat. Sawad has posted our links in his post here, so please see those. Thanks, Manu and Krishnan. Shaz is asking, if my initial startup is in GCC countries, is it okay to apply as a startup from India? Yeah, I guess, Arjun, you're living in a GCC country, right?
Yeah, yeah. None of that matters, right? Just to go ahead and you can be
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you're targeting.
That's
like,
exactly what YC,
and then
that's why YC exists, right? Anyone, anywhere, if they're building a great startup, they can get funded. They don't need to know anyone. They don't need to have a previous network. They don't need anything, right? So that's exactly why YC exists. There's no reason not to apply or get funded or build a large company. Just, just move ahead, move ahead.
sure. Thank you. Ashik Raman's asking a bunch of things, but I think okay, is this possible to get into YC community? Yeah, it's been some time you're looking for a co-founder. Use the YC co-founder matching tool, apply solo, get some early traction, prove your pain point. I've been where you are multiple times. I know how it is. So I know you're asking a bunch of things, but yeah, reach out. I think one-on-one we'll talk more. Okay, good. I think that's it. We've literally gone through all 65 questions, which is quite cool, and a bunch of live ones as well. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap up if no one else has anything. It's been good, almost 90 minutes. Oh, we got one more. Okay, we're gonna take Vinay Raj KP, and then we'll wrap up. Okay.
Yeah, hi, can
Vinay,
you hear
you
me?
want to unmute?
Yeah, I just
Go
unmuted.
ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for the session. Actually, it's really useful. And can I reach out to any of you for like through LinkedIn? I just checked out your profile, and I also missed a bit of a beginning. Can I reach out to some of you in case there's something?
Yeah,
Is that
sure.
fine?
Sure.
LinkedIn. Okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
Cool. Shamir Moidu is asking, hey, what would be the total amount YC contributes? It's 500,000, and there's more details on their website. Okay, we'll take one more from Krishnan, and then we'll wrap up. Right. Krishnamurti, would you like to unmute? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks for the great session, Anand, Pranav, and Arjun. So my question is this, right? So I actually have contacts with some of the YC founders, and some of them told me that it's the life after YC and before YC is a lot different, and your work-life balance gets impacted very badly. So how much of that is true, and what are your experiences? Can you please share?
Yeah, let's go through everyone here. I'll give you mine first. I've done YC startups with YC, startups without YC. I don't think it was any different. Like, startups are always tough. Your work-life balance is just something that you have to learn to handle. And if anything, YC helped me manage my work-life balance even better because it gave me the right focus and priorities and taught me a bunch of things. So that was my experience. Pranav?
Yeah, I think like it's not different. If you're building a startup, there's like there is this constant pressure. I guess I did my like initial first startup in 2015, like just out of the college. I used to work like 14-15 hours or 16 hours a day, and yeah, I think like it has nothing to do with YC. Like if you're passionate enough, if you have the energy to do it, yeah, you'll definitely do it. But yeah, I mean it also depends on like it's not easy. Like building a startup is not easy, but yeah, I mean, like you can set your priorities, you can figure out how you can work better, and yeah, make it sustainable so that you build the business for 10 years, not just for like a year. So it's up to you to figure out how to do that. It has nothing to do with, like, whether you're funded with YC or whether you are funded with any other venture capitalist firm. So yeah.
Great. Arjun?
Yeah, so I mean, building $1 billion company is really, really, really tough, right? So there's no easy way to do it, and that's why you don't see too many, startup founders because it's really tough. So YC specifically has nothing to do with it. Startups by itself is very tough, so don't expect an easy ride. There are lots of other options, like you can get a nice job, you can study an MBA, get a really nice paying job, stay in 5-star hotels. You can do that. So there are options. If you choose the startup path, just understand it's not going to be easy doing it. Your co-founder relationship is going to be very tough. Managing employees is going to be very tough. So it doesn't get easy, right? It'll only get, each stage is tougher. So you will think like hitting the 1 million mark, oh, then it's all coasting after that. No, it's not. It's more difficult to get from 1 to 5 million than 0 to 1 million, right? So it just gets, so don't expect that. Set your expectations accordingly. YC has nothing to do with. In fact, if YC might make it easier because you get access to lots of great advice, easier funding than from the outside world. So it actually might help you. But yeah, work-life balance and startup life don't go in the same sentence, right? So set your expectations accordingly.
Thank you.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Pranav.
Yeah, I think I should add this. So like one of the best things which I've gotten after getting into YC is basically the network. And like there are like 10 different startups who are at the same stage as you are, and there are 100 different startups who have just gone past the stage where you are at. So it's easy for you to resonate your ideas. Like you're stuck at something, you can't figure out sales, you can figure out the product, you can figure out the engineering aspect of it. Then there is another startup who's actually going through the same thing, and you can build a support group around that. So I mean, that is much more easier. Access is easier, and you'll find a like-minded people who's experiencing the same problem in a different part of the world, and they would be there to help you out. So I guess applying to YC is definitely worth it, just to get that network. So yeah.
No, for sure. And the other thing, I will just wrap up here, but the other thing I'll just say is that founder work-life balance and founder mentality, mood, peace of mind, mental health, these have been really important questions that have come up a lot recently. It's not quite related to the topic here, but I'll just comment that things have changed a lot over the years. I think people are more conscious of this. But yeah, certainly in my mind, what Pranav and Arjun pointed out, that it certainly helped me to think things more and put things in more perspective. It made life easier, having that mentorship, that network, that alumni. Even for me, my first bunch of customers, So yeah, for sure. Cool. We'll wrap up here. I'm going to hand it back to Sawad. And then yeah, we'll wrap up here. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Anand, for wonderfully coordinating the discussion. You covered almost all questions. That's again interesting part. Pranav, Arjun, I think we will come up with next session to how to prepare for interview, at least for 5 startups, hopefully. So thank you all for joining the session, and thank you once again for the panelist and Anand. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.